I'm Sarah. I would like to share with you my journey and experience with multimodal literacies and how this impacts children's learning. But first, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land I am on by sharing a multimodal song. I live on the land of the Waterong people. I play on the land of the Waterong people. I learn on the land of the Waterong people and say thank you for sharing your land. I touch the ground to say hello. I touch the sky to say hello. I touch my heart to pay respects. Say thank you for sharing your land. I found connection to place and inspiration for multimodal exploration in this place, what I call my backyard. Since becoming an educator, I have found myself taking more interest in the birds, especially the ones that visit this place. I come to my yard often to play with my dog and observe it through the windows while washing up or eating breakfast. I want to focus my experience on these birds that come to visit and seek resources from the backyard. There are a variety of different birds that like to visit: blackbirds, spotted doves, and mynas, as well as the occasional noisy miner, magpie lark, and pied currawong. My focus is specifically on the spotted doves that frequent my yard. Observing how the spotted doves come into the yard around the time I feed my dog, I make meaning that they must have some knowledge of the time, knowledge of when I feed the dog breakfast and dinner. I make this meaning through various modes, defined by Galansis and Cope. Visually and spatially, I see the birds gather near where the food will be thrown before I put it out. I also make meaning spatially and gesturally as I see one arrive and then more follow, landing on the grass. They flap their wings at one another. I wonder how these spotted doves make sense of time. Is it the position of the sun in the sky, or the way the shadows fall across the yard from the trees? I begin to wonder, what exactly do spotted doves eat? Does my yard provide them with this? What else is here that the various birds are seeking? To better understand what is happening, I take a closer look at the ecosystem of my yard in close detail. The vine that provides berries for the blackbird hosts not only berries, but many webs that have gotten dirty and look discarded. I notice how the tree where the spotted doves sit is entangled with the neighbors. As I'm looking up, I see a small swarm of insects, and even higher up, I see a web that has caught many bugs. Adding together the knowledge of seeing these small creatures together with the textural information of the warmer weather and visual information of the days growing longer, I make a new meaning that the season must be starting to change, and wonder what season this would be to the Waterong people on this land. I look down at the grass below the tree. It has lots of feathers. Some are small while others are big. They look soft. The smaller ones are fluffy and even softer looking than the big ones. The feathers are gray and white, and I make connection that they must have come from the spotted doves. The afternoons have been warmer, so I make a new meaning that this warmer weather might mean that they're molting. I begin to wonder how many creatures also call this place home. How many of them do I not see or miss out on observing because they come out at night or when I'm not around? How long have they been visiting this place? How long have the birds been finding shelter and food in the plants and the man-made objects around the backyard? So how does this experience of multiliteracies, wondering and exploring of my yard relate to young children and early years pedagogy? The traditional sense of literacy, defined by the Cambridge Dictionary, is the ability to read and write. This narrow view of literacy has led to a greater focus on young children being literate. As McRae states, we are in a time of accelerating anxiety about closing literacy gaps before children start school. Multimodal literacy encompasses ways of being literate other than reading, writing, and verbal skills, through exploring and making connections about the world around us. The New London Group explains, a pedagogy of multiliteracies recognized that changing social, cultural, political, and economic conditions meant that preparing for the future is very different than it was in previous times. Multiliteracies highlight how young children already make meaning and understanding through many forms. Children are innately observant and responsive to the world in which they live, and make meaning and connection through modes of multiliteracy. For example, a child might read body language and gesture in response, or explain their idea or hypothesis through dance, audio, or art. As an educator, using a pedagogy of multiliteracy means understanding and providing the time and space for children to make their own meaning and clarify their understanding of their world through multimodal opportunities. Here, I explore some multimodal activities and explain how they deepen my understanding and connection. I collect some materials that I've found, sticks and branches that trees have let go of, feathers from the spotted doves, a leaf from the vine, and a berry. I trace the leaf and then make a rubbing to encapsulate the texture. I smash the berry next to it and find hard seeds inside. Then I make a rubbing of the brick footpath where I put my dog's food. I then attempt to construct a nest by manipulating the fallen sticks and leaves I have collected. Through these experiences, I find a deeper connection to place by only taking what is available and making sure to leave it behind for the creatures and ecosystem of my yard. I apply the available design of multiliteracies to new experiences and familiar ones, designing and redesigning my understanding of these activities and experiences. For example, on a trip to Brisbane with my sister, we explore and make meaning of this new place. We feel the tactile sensation of the cool water on our legs. Visually, I'm mesmerized by how shiny and sparkly the water is while the sun beams down. We talk about how cold the water is and how we're glad we didn't wear our bathers. We also notice how the temperature is much warmer here in Brisbane than it is down in Geelong. While I sit at the nail salon and get my nails painted, I watch closely at the communication between my hand and the manicurist's hands, how we ebb and flow in gestural and spatial movement. My sister and I walk on the beach and sit for a while. We both take turns exploring the area multimodally. I press a stick into the sand, feeling the tactile sensation of how the stick presses into the sand. My sister explores spatially as she pops a plant into the sand, making a shadow that looks like an evergreen. We begin to explore spatially and visually together in search of seashells. We orally describe what we are each looking for, or the unique shell we find. Some shells are shiny and some are incredibly small. After collecting shells, we arrange them in a spatially pleasing way. I put a bigger broken shell over the top of the two small ones and say to my sister, "It's their house," while exploring more connections about what is happening in my world and apply these ideas to new experiences to create new meaning and understanding, even in my familiar experiences. This allows me to gain a clearer idea of how children might experience and learn about the world. Through learning and exploring multiliteracies, I have redesigned the idea of literacy into multimodal literacy.